just received a medal for an event which has taken me 4 years to complete and saw me taking on 2 new, quite scary for me, sports. Yes, last weekend I received this rather large London Classics medal. Now if you don't know what the London Classics are, here we go. London Marathon events, as organisers, put on a number of big events in and around London. So to receive this medal and tick off the London Classics, you need to complete the London Marathon, complete the Ride London 100-mile cycle ride, and finally complete the Serpentine Swim 2-mile event. You do not need to complete them in one calendar year, you can complete them over your lifetime. As long as you've completed them at some point in your life and have a record of that, then you can qualify for the London Classics medal. Now, I didn't ever plan on getting a London Classics medal a number of years ago when they first launched it. It wasn't something that really bothered me. I wasn't really interested in cycling or swimming at that time. So this was my first London Marathon medal in 2006, back when it was Flora, and I did it 4 years in a row. Now this is what you would call a proper humble brag. I had run the London Marathon 9 times, but I was quite happy with carrying on with running. I didn't really have any interest in starting open water swimming or getting a bike and cycling. 2 years ago, I was sitting in this very room watching television. My husband had gone out for some drinks with friends, and I looked at my phone and I'd got a generic email from London Marathon Events, and it was telling me that the ballot for Ride London the following year had just opened, and like the London Marathon ballot, you can just put your name in the hat. You don't have to pay a fee unless you actually get in. I looked at it and thought, well, what the hell? I can just put my name down. I probably won't get in and I probably won't have to do it. Fast forward 3 months and I'd got a place in Ride London, and I was borrowing my father-in-law's road bike to learn how to ride on the road for the first time. Now I can ride a bike, and I was riding all through my childhood, but I probably haven't owned a bike for about 20 years. So it was a massive step to go from not owning a bike to having to ride on Britain's roads. A couple of months later, my husband buys me my first road bike, and I started heading out for 5 to 10 miles on the bike by myself. To start with, I could only take my right arm off of the handlebars, so I tried to only go places where I could only indicate to go right and I didn't have to go left. If I was going left, people just had to guess what was going on. A few months more and many more bicycle rides later, I was eventually standing on the start line with my bike on the start of the Ride London 100-mile bike ride. The bike ride and learning to ride safely on road was probably the scariest and the most out of my comfort zone I felt out of all the 3 disciplines. I can ride a bike, but I'd never ridden on big roads. I'd never ridden in a cycle event with lots and lots of other bikes. So it was really nerve-wracking and took me a long time to feel comfortable on the bike. Luckily in Ride London, all the roads are closed to cars, so it's just you and all the other cyclists. But I was really careful to keep to one side and keep out of the way of all the other faster cyclists. I finished the ride and felt very proud of myself. I think prouder than many marathons and ultra marathons that I've ever done. It was really a big out of my comfort zone event to do, and I was really nervous, more than anything that I was going to get a puncture and have to change tyre. I have ridden a bit on the road since, generally just to run errands and nip out here and there, and I do really enjoy putting the bike on the turbo trainer in the house in the winter if it's getting dark and cold and I don't want to go out for a run. So I ticked the 2 first challenges off, and now all I had to do was go for a swim. Oh God. Get any awards for style in open water swimming. Now when I was a teenager, I used to take part in something called tetrathlon, which is one phase less than modern pentathlon. It's riding, running, swimming and shooting. So I used to do a lot of swimming training. Think about 1 hour every week for about 4 years. So personally, I feel like I've got a good front crawl technique, but open water swimming was something that I had never done before. I'd never ventured out of a swimming pool, and that was something that felt really big and scary to me. Luckily for me, near where we live in Kent, we have got a brilliant local lakes, which is in an old quarry, and it is crystal clear water. It is absolutely stunning, and they've got some really friendly people down there that help me get to grips with open water swimming. I think one of the most difficult things was the sighting. So obviously in a pool, you normally have a line or a lane that you can stick in, and it's really easy to see if you're staying in a straight line. In open water, you're often swimming out to buoys and then onto the next buoy and then onto the next buoy. And you need to be able to keep looking and sighting to see if you're heading in the direction of the buoy. So sighting was totally new to me, and that was something that I think took a little while to get to grips with, and it's something that you just don't really think about when you're in a pool. You can just go straight up and down, but obviously in open water it's really essential that you try and go from point to point and you're not wasting time meandering about a lake. Soon I learned that it actually wasn't just the sighting that was difficult, it was the process of putting it all together. So swimming technique, your breathing, then sighting to see where you're going, and everything else just made it actually really quite overwhelming. Sometimes I found that if I got in the water and I was totally distracted by my thoughts, then I could just do it without thinking, but it took a long while to get to that point. So I swam all last summer and into the winter, going from 22 degrees, which was lovely and warm in the water, down to 6 degrees in December. I did build up my distance slowly, but on a swim in December, I had a really weird dizzy spell, and that made me really nervous and uneasy at getting into open water. If you watch my channel, you'll know that this dizziness really reared its head in an ultramarathon that I took part in June, and it's been a really long, slow process over the summer, trying to figure out what triggers it and how I manage it. Thankfully now I seem to have it really under control, and 2 weeks ago I did manage to swim around the perimeter of my local lakes, which felt like a really big step in my swimming. I was swimming in new parts of the lake that I've never swum in before, having to sight and look where I was going, and that was okay, and I felt really confident then going into the Serpentine. So when it came to Serpentine Day, we all got the train up to London as a family and made our way over to Hyde Park to the Serpentine and got me ready to get in for my big swim. Now I had all my usual gear that I swim with, but the last swim that I'd done, my perimeter swim, my goggles had really fogged up. So I took a chance and ordered myself a second set of goggles, which did arrive from Amazon the day before we swam, but I hadn't had a chance to practice with them. So that was my first worry. My second worry was that the water was a bit colder than I've been used to swimming in all summer. I think it was down to like 14 degrees, which definitely felt a bit chillier when we got in. And my third worry was that when you got into the Serpentine to start the swim, there was nowhere to sort of stand and get acclimatised. So normally I like to dunk my face in the water and kind of activate my nervous system to get me ready to swim. In the Serpentine, you basically just have to jump in and go. I got in nice and slowly and did a few strokes of breaststroke before I started doing front crawl, and actually it turned out to be okay. Now I do really appreciate how lucky we are with our local lakes because it is spring fed, it's lovely and clean. There are not many birds that actually live on the lakes down there, but in the Serpentine you've got swans, you've got ducks, you've got geese, you've got all manner of wildlife, and you've also got powered boats going up and down every so often. So it wasn't the cleanest place I've ever swum. Don't get me wrong, it was lovely, and it was lovely to be swimming in the sunshine. It wasn't raining, it wasn't really, really cold, but you definitely got a whiff of petrol or a bit of a kind of ducky smell when you were swimming along. After 2 very long and tiring laps, I finally got out and got my Serpentine 2-mile finish medal. And because I'd finally got all 3, I was allowed to go to the Classics tent and pick up this humongous London Classics medal. And it's got a lovely inscription on the back which says Et ego Londinium vici, which means I too conquered London. If I was going to recommend that anybody take on the London Classics, I would definitely say aim for the London Marathon first. It's probably the hardest one to get into, and also it's, in my opinion, the hardest one to train for. Ride London, I feel like anyone could do it if you're competent on a bike. You don't have to be a massive cyclist, you don't have to be going out all the time. You can just kind of make a day of it and go out for a really long bike ride with some picnics in the middle. I would say that the swim was without a doubt my favourite event of the 3. I've really, really enjoyed getting into open water swimming in the last 2 years, and I don't think the Serpentine swim is going to be my last swimming event. I'm definitely going to be going back next year, and I'm hoping that I might be able to incorporate some swim running events into my calendar in the future, so it's definitely not the last of my open water swimming adventures. If you are a keen runner or perhaps a keen cyclist or a keen swimmer, then I would definitely recommend setting yourself a challenge of going to get your London Classics medal. Even if, like me, you're not really driven by the medal, it's more just the task of taking on 2 big challenges in 2 big sports that you might not have that much experience in. For me, that alone was well worth it. Can you even see the bike? This here. I'm trying to kind of put all the stuff in the background. You can see it, can't you? You can see there's a bike.